Wow. That was Candlemass, and the song was called Bewitched. And I'm Grady George, and you're watching Your Morning Turns to Darkness. Now, I hadn't planned to do Your Morning Turns to Darkness on the weekends, but I ended up not doing a show yesterday. And basically, I didn't feel very well. I started feeling kind of weird, so I was just like, fuck it. And then I laid down, and I didn't wake up until like 6 o'clock this morning, my time. So I slept like, I don't even know, man, like 18 hours or something. Which, for those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that I suffer from insomnia. So that's why I have a late night show called Night Freaks. I have a morning show called Your Morning Turns to Darkness, and it's hard for me to go to sleep sometimes. So it was nice that I was able to get that sleep time. So I was just up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I decided I was going to watch some cartoons, possibly on Tubi, because I have this Tubi review show, and I wanted to check out some more material on Tubi, and I saw they had some pretty fucked up looking cartoons on there. I wanted to check out. One of them is Archie's Weird Mysteries, which seems to be a cross between the Archie comics and X Files. And the other one is Tales from the Crypt Keeper, which I think this predates the HBO show, but it's still based on the same character from the EC comics. And, that later went on to become an R-rated film series, I believe. So I'm always kind of interested in these cartoons that I'm always kind of interested in these cartoons that are based on R-rated movies. Like I remember there was a Rambo cartoon and shit like that. But to each their own. That's all I'm going to be doing today. So let me see here. And this is where I need to get my StreamYard skills better. Because like all this shit takes me like way too long. Okay, so I got Tubi up here, and a lot of their stuff is like old. It's old shit. Well, Pippi Longstocking, stuff like that. There's a Popeye and Friends. Wait, let me check that out because I don't like Popeye, but the thing about Popeye is it is for me, it's a sterling example of propaganda, and it really is a propaganda cartoon, in my opinion. But not only is he a sailor, and it's sort of making the military people the hero of everything. Even a guy like Popeye, all he has to do is join up, and he's this, cool guy. But apparently, this was, during the Depression, people were not eating enough meat. They weren't getting enough protein in their diets, and or iron. And people were having a lot of health issues. So they were trying to promote the eating spinach as a cheap, non-meat way to get some iron in your blood and stuff like that. So they actually were paying, it must have been Paramount. It looks like they're the company putting it out, but the government was actually paying them to include all that shit about spinach and stuff because they wanted the malnourished children to eat the spinach. So it's a propaganda piece all the way through.
Hear ye, hear ye. The case of Buto versus Popeye the Sailor. Judge Wimpy presiding.
Bluto, party of the first part, being brutally beaten on several occasions by Popeye the Sailor, party of the second part, charges him with assault and battery.
Your Honor, I'm innocent.
Order in the court! The plaintiff will now state his case.
Well, Your Honor, the first time Popeye beat me up, my girlfriend Olive Oil was in trouble, and I tried to help her. And he always beats me up for doing nothing.
Your Honor, he's lying.
Order in the court! Has the plaintiff any further testimony?
Yes, Your Honor. Another time, Popeye was acting like a madman, and he almost killed me. So you see, Your Honor, I ain't safe with that Popeye around.
Very touching indeed. Have you anything to say before I pronounce sentence?
Yes, Your Honor, I has a lots to say. One day, me and me sweetheart Olive Oil was sitting in the theater enjoying the show.
For this trick, I need volunteer. This is a big deal, so keep your eyes on the cards. Abracadabra, 1, 2, 3. No cards, see?
What do you mean? What happened? I don't understand.
Observe. Nothing up my sleeve.
There's something tricky about this, Icky. Where them cards go?
Right here.
Hey, you can't make a jackass out of me.
So I think like what I'm getting out of this cartoon is like, okay, Brutus is always like bullying everyone. Popeye comes and saves the day by literally assaulting him, committing actual crimes against him to protect the innocent people that, Brutus is always fucking with. Now, Brutus has actually turned the law against Popeye. He's claiming to be the victim so that he can get rid of Popeye so he can continue his brutal reign of bullying everyone. I see this like going on today, so I'm getting a lot of value out of this cartoon, even in 2023. Because this is a like cartoon representation for children of the day, exactly how it's going to go. If you try to stick up for yourself or anything.
And now I will hypnotize a charming cherub. Abracadabra, shalom aleichem. Popeye or eat.
And you see how easily olive oil is just charmed just by lies and deceit? That's how real women are, too. And yeah, it's not cool to lie and deceive them, but on the other hand, if you do not, you ain't getting no play, because she ain't checking out Popeye right now, is she? No.
Approach me, my sweet.
Boy, he's gone far enough with that hypno stuff.
Why either one of them would even want olive oil is beyond me. I mean, the girl got zero ass.
Hey, Olive, watch your step.
I'd be like, see you later, toots. Other bitches in the sea.
Abracadabra.
Help! Somebody! Get me a parachute! Anything! Popeye! This high attitude is killing me!
Abracadabra. And that, Your Honor, is the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Popeye, I find you not guilty. Case dismissed.
That ain't justice.
Alright, so that was Popeye and Friends, Volume 1. You can catch that on Tubi if you want to see more of those. But, yeah, today I'm just kind of checking out, I'm going around looking at some cartoons. Saturday morning, I thought it would be a good time to check out some Tubi cartoons, but I'm kind of looking at, like, some... First of all, everything on Tubi is kind of old and outdated. They do have some Tubi originals, so if you're somebody with kids and you're like really looking for some like new shit to check out, I think Tubi might have you covered there, but I'm not looking at that kind of stuff. I'm looking at probably old cartoons or just like weird looking cartoons. It would be more for adults. So, you know, if you're somebody on a Saturday looking for cartoons for your kids, this probably is not the show to be checking out. You know what I mean? You probably are not going to have a good time. I'm also wake and bacon, you know, if you're hip to the street lingo. So yeah, you might want to, you know, go on over to that chick that makes fun of your kids queefing on stage. What's her name? Baldinger? You know, I think that your first clue is her name is Baldinger, you know. Oh, I see, Toxic. So how are you doing today, man? If you're still there, I don't know. I'm just kind of hanging out. This truly is a chill stream. I wasn't going to do a stream today at all. In fact, I have a live stream later tonight. And I also may have some Grady TV interviews lined up for later today, which are, both of them are monumental interviews for me. I think that people will really enjoy them, but I have to shoot the I have to actually film them and conduct the interview. So they could end up being horrible. So I can't say the actual interview is good, but I feel like they both potentially are like will probably be two of my more highly viewed Grady TVs because I think that both of them are just very interesting subjects, But I can't really say who they are or even give you a hint. But I think I'm pretty excited, So I may end up having to shoot two Grady TVs today and do that live show tonight. So the last thing I wanted to do was a live show in the morning, but I'm just kind of sitting here. Like what happened was yesterday I was going to do a morning show, and I actually started to do one, but I started feeling weird, And I was like, I don't think I can make it through this fucking show. So I just fucking like, because I'd only been going for like 5 minutes or something. So I just shut it down, and I laid down, and I woke up like 18 hours later, and it's Saturday morning, and I had nothing to do, and I've been wanting to check out the cartoons on Tubi, because I'm doing this Tubi review show, so I'm trying to also check more into Tubi, because a lot of like basic questions people are asking me, like exactly how many shows and movies they have on Tubi do they have. I have no idea. I don't know Tubi like that. I just kind of watch what I watch, so I'm trying to learn more about the actual, site and shit like that, but and also they have very interesting cartoons for me anyway. Because first of all, a lot of them are cartoons I kind of remember when I was a kid that maybe I watched once or twice, and I remember them being on, but they just sucked, like really bad, and I didn't watch them. But some of them are very interesting concepts that, like like I remember one is like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ripoff, except they're sharks, they're land sharks, which is kind of weird. But I can't remember exactly what they're called right now. But I think they're on Tubi as well, and a lot of Transformers ripoffs, shit like that. A lot of ripoffs of really big cartoons, which I enjoy watching ripoffs, and so I thought I would check them out. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Land Sharks. That's not what they're called. They're called like Turbo Sharks, or that's not what they're called either. But it's something like that, I actually did a comic when I was a kid, and I actually sold it through the mail, and I sold hundreds of copies of it. And it was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ripoff, except it was, I don't want to, well, yeah, I'm not even going to tell you what it was, because possible I could, yeah, forget about that. But basically, I did some kind of ripoff that was based on, but I didn't use animals. I didn't use animals at all. But I can't really tell you what it is because it would be people could find it. You know what I mean? And not that I care, but I was a little kid, and yeah, I don't know. That's why I don't know if a lot of people know I used to do comic books when I was a child. And when I say a child, I'm talking like 11 years old. And I was working with a local print shop, and they were printing my shit for me, and making money off of it too. And I was making money too. And I was selling my comics through the mail through like Fact Sheet 5, and they had some other places like Small Press Comics Explosion and stuff like that. And I would correspond with some artists that went on to become pretty big artists, and I would work with them too. Like they would illustrate my stories and shit like that. But one of the people that I did correspond with, and when I say corresponded with him, like I don't know if we actually ever wrote to each other. I think briefly, maybe he wrote me a few sentences or whatever. But I would basically trade comics with this guy. But his name was Mike Diana. And they actually made a documentary film about him from the producer and director of Basket Case. And it's on Tubi as well. I believe it's called The Trial of Mike Diana. And he's actually the only artist that's ever been arrested for art. Like in the United States. And convicted, I believe. I mean, some people bailed him out on a pill, and they paid for him to like move to New York City from Florida. So he never actually like went to prison for it, I don't think. But I don't think he can go back to Florida. I think it's possible they could still arrest him and put him in jail. But basically, there was a serial killer called like I forget what the serial killer was called. It was down in Florida, right? And when they were looking at the comics. And this Mike Diana guy's comics, and there's a comic book where he had drew like a guy killed a woman, and he put like her torso and her head and her legs and shit in like a weird pattern, very distinct pattern in the comic book. So the serial killer killed somebody, and he put the fucking body like in this comic, and it turned out the serial killer read this guy's comics, and literally, it was based on the comic book, right? So for some reason, they started thinking this Mike Diana guy was the serial killer, and they for sure thought he was the serial killer. And but anyway, they found out there was a serial killer, and they found some of his comics in the guy's apartment, and this Mike Diana had nothing to do with it, but they wouldn't let it go. Not only did they, I mean, since it turned out he wasn't the serial killer themselves, they were trying to blame him for like influencing the serial killer to go out and do this shit. But anyway, as a child, I was corresponding with this Mike Diana guy, right? So I would send him my comics, and he would send me his comics, and to be fair, I think around that time I was probably 15 years old. And he's not that much older than me, so he was probably 18 or 19 or something. So, but his comics would be like just people getting murdered, like having their heads chopped off and people having sex with the dead bodies and fucking shit. And I'm just like, I would get these in the mail, and I would be reading them like, to me, it's just like, it's like really no different from like that kind of shit I've seen in horror films at that age. You know what I mean? So it's just like a different entertainment medium. You can read books that have that kind of shit described in it. But when you say it's a comic book, people freak out for some reason, To me, it was just somebody telling a story, and really that's what it is, The guy's not a serial killer. Now, he might be a weirdo. I've seen that documentary, and yeah, he is a little strange. He is a little odd, Yeah, when I was a kid, I was into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before they actually became a cartoon. Because I was really into comic books as a kid, and I think around the time I was like maybe around 10 maybe, my mother took me to a comic book store. And I had unfettered access to a comic book collection of mostly Archie, Harvey comics. There was some early edition Marvels. and stuff like that a relative had when they were a kid, like in the '60s. So I would read all these comics all the time, and some of them were actually rare and valuable, and they didn't give a fuck. They just give it to me, and I would just like throw it around. And I remember they had Conan the Barbarian #1, and they had like probably the first 60 issues of Conan. So I read all of those like 3 or 4 fucking times. All I did as a kid was read. I didn't like to play with toys and shit. And to be honest with you, I probably had something wrong with me, 'Cause they would try to buy me like toys, and the only thing I had any interest in was like building blocks, and I would just stack the blocks as high as I could until they fell. That was basically my only interest. I wasn't trying to build anything. I just wanted to like see how far I could get these blocks to fucking stack, and I like to read, so that was pretty much it. Yeah, that sucks, man. Oh yeah, that first appearance of Venom, especially, I think, and probably Carnage too. I'm sure would be valuable. But that's how it is with those kind. Everybody has a comic that they remember they had. That's worth. No, I actually had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, first printing for real, and I remember taking it to a comic book convention, and it was quite the spectacle. But I ended up selling it, and I only sold it for like $400. It was, I think the comic now is being auctioned off at Sotheby's. That's the only way you can purchase it, but uh, I'm not sure. And I actually used to, again, because I used to do my own comics, I used to correspond with Eastman and Laird. I think they took pity on me because I was a little kid. They would actually like write me back and shit and give me tips and stuff like that. And I was sending them my comics and shit. And many times they would include like a little turtle sketch, that they signed in the correspondence. I don't even know where that shit is now. I remember I had a Jack Kirby original, like Grey Hawk drawing, which is probably considered like fine art now. I don't know. And I just literally, I had purchased it at a comic book store, for like $30 or something. And it was already old, at that point. I just like thumbtacked it on my wall. I had the first appearance of Wolverine. I think it's Hulk 181. I had all kinds of shit. I had Cerebus the Aardvark #1, But I ended up selling all this shit. I'm not saying I sold it like I got ripped off or anything, but, if I had just kept the shit, it'd be worth like way more money now. Because like that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, only like 3,000 of them got made, and now that hardly anybody thought it was going to be anything. So a lot of them ended up just being thrown away and shit. So there's not a lot of those just from the start. And the longer away you get from the release date, the less and less of them there are. So I wish I had kept that one for sure. But anyway, my point was I got into, at a very young age, I got into this independent comics right around 11 years old, because I would find them in the comic book stores. They were usually black and white comics because they were usually black and white comics because the publishers couldn't afford color, and I started reading those, and the stories were a lot more adult, and the art was always like really crazy, a wide range of styles. From like, there was a stick figure comic called Cynical Man, which I loved. And that same guy did another stick figure comic called Anti-Social Man, which one of my favorite characters of all time. He's just a pissed off fucking dude. He likes to go down and put clubhouse signs on abandoned refrigerators in the junkyard and shit. and he's got a comic where there's like a superhero group called Fighting Guys. And it's just like a bunch of average guys, like an office worker and a fucking plumber and shit like that, and they're kind of like vigilantes. And they hear some like perverts in the neighborhood, they just roll up on them and beat the fucking shit out of the motherfuckers. And they're like the real life superheroes or whatever. Anyway, it's interesting stuff. And so I got into that, and that's how I ended up. I actually saw an actual, like, what they call a mini comic, which is more of a where you get it done at the print shop, local print shop. So I ended up researching that at a very young age, and I started getting into my own comics. And I wanted to make, I actually wanted to start my own comic book company when I got old enough. But when I turned 18, I just didn't really care about comics anymore at that point. But at that point, I had connected with lots of great artists around the country. Like I said, some of them went on to do professional work for Marvel. And that's when I started getting more into music, and then I ended up starting my own record label, which I know a lot of people say that nowadays, and they're like selling shit on Bandcamp or whatever, but I literally started a record label where I set up a distribution network. You know, I was distributed by several distributors, you know, and I had distribution in Europe, I had distribution in Japan. I helped set up, you know, tours through the United States for bands that were on my label. So I made a lot of connections with, you know, local musicians like that. And then one day that didn't interest me anymore either, you know. So, and through my whole life, I've been making movies, right? Like making like films. Any way I can, you know, whatever I have access to make them on, I try to make them. So when the internet came out, and I saw I could do audio video on the internet, that was just like the next medium to try out, you know. I mean, I'm sure like back in the day when I was doing those comics and stuff, that probably nowadays would all be done on the internet. I would just be some kid on the internet doing this, you know, trying to send out my PDF files of my dumb comic and trying to get people to read them. But, you know, I was forced to actually, like, literally start a business, you know. And I had a P.O. box, and I had to pay taxes on the money I was bringing in because I had a bank account associated with my business, and it's really crazy to think back on it, you know. Oh, but anyway, I got really into the independent comics of the day, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was one of them, and it was a way more adult comic when it came out. And in fact, they had nudity in the comics, you know. That comic Howard the Duck, if you look at the 1970s oversized original series that came out, there's nudity in there. I believe Howard has sex with the lady. Oh yeah, that's cool. You know, the people that do album covers, that's a good. You know, if you're a really good artist, you know, and you like a certain type of music, it's a good niche to get into, you know, because you can get a lot of work that way. And a lot of the, like, if you just happen to draw the cover of some album that just became very well known, man, I mean, you can just go ahead and retire, dude, because that original art will sell in the millions, you know. And what I'm saying is, there's like, what is that? It's not easy for me to just bring up shit. It should be, right? But it's not that easy for me right now just to bring up shit. But there's an artist called Pusshead, and he does some early Misfits album covers. And the way he draws, it's just like, I think he just takes a ballpoint pen and he makes dots, you know? And his artwork is incredible, but he did a few of those very early Misfits covers, and I'm fairly certain those things sell in the millions of dollars now, you know. And back then, when the Misfits asked him to do the album cover, I'm sure it was just like he probably had no idea who they were, or if he did, they were just some dudes that were playing there locally, you know. So yeah, doing that kind of stuff, but I would recommend it as an artist. Like a lot of people go, well, I don't want to sell out and I don't want to do that kind of stuff and be told what to draw and all that shit. But to me, if you actually like that work, you know what I mean? If you like their work and you're collaborating with them, I think as an artist, that's not really selling out. And I think you can put, since you actually like the music and you like what they're doing, you can actually put that part of you artistically into what they're doing and come up with some really great stuff like that early Pusshead work. That's what I'm saying. Like I often recommend to people who are artists to contact some bands that they like and ask them if they want to if they need any artwork done. And a lot of times they'll gladly take that and they'll help promote you. You help promote them, and it's somebody you like, you know. So it's not like your art is just commercialized, you know. It's like a lot of times artists might draw that kind of stuff, you know, anyway, just for their own personal use. So, you know, it's a good way to, you know, end up possibly making some money. Because eventually, one of those bands are going to fucking hit, and then people are going to want to pay you to do their art. Yeah, the death metal artists are fucking crazy, but there's also a formula to that too. You know, I think a lot of the early black metal or death metal art was really interesting, and now they've got it. Now they've got it worked down to a formula. So I think there's these sort of like fruit bowl artists now that are doing that kind of artwork, and it's kind of soulless, you know. So I see a lot of that stuff getting cranked out now, and I just don't like it as much as I used to. But I don't know if I make sense what I'm saying, you know. A lot of times somebody comes up with something original and cool, people copy it, and then once you figure out the formula, then that's when these fruit bowl artists. When I say fruit bowl, is that there's people who are born artists, you know, and a lot of times they never in the entirety of their life can draw a bowl of fruit that looks like a photograph, right? But their artwork is more interesting than a person that can draw like that. Then you got these people that have no artistic vision whatsoever, but they can draw they can be trained, they can be taught how to draw a bowl of fruit that looks like a photograph, you know? And they can draw that, but they can never come up with the concepts or the ideas or the feelings that are portrayed by the less technical artists, you know what I mean? So once you've taken something like death metal or black metal, and you've come up with some really, you know, iconic imagery, these fruit bowl artists can look at it and they can kind of figure out like a formula, and they can like redo it into their own thing. But at that point, when you start getting art like that, at that point that shit's not cool anymore. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of art's gotten to that point now. You know? Yeah, actually, merch is where it's at. Like I said, I met a guy through somebody that is related to me's art. I would go help them out, and I met a guy named the Wizard of Barge at these shows, and He actually lived in my town, but he has since moved away and he went to LA and he's blown up and he's a big he's a pretty I mean he has to be making like buku cash, man. Because he's hooking up deals, you know, as a designer. And when I say buku cash, I think he's still got a lot of art credibility in him, you know. He's not like a sellout, so I don't think he would like ever do like a deal with the Gap or anything. But this guy, like I literally, I'll just be out and about and I'll see somebody wearing one of his shirts, you know. So it's gotten to that point. Yeah, I guess the AI art operates in a similar way as what I'm talking, you know. And yeah, I haven't been that impressed with it either. At the end of the day, the art that moves you is full of emotion and like human emotion, or you know, there's something in it that triggers that. And I'm not sure an AI can ever achieve that. You know, I'm sure they can. It's going to be a replication. It's not going to be real. It's like I can sit there in a movie. I can watch a movie and I can watch somebody like break down and cry, you know, and it doesn't bother me at all. Like I don't really feel upset by it. But if somebody's like really breaking down and crying in front of me, I get like a different emotion from that, you know. So I guess it's more the more real the art is, the more emotion I have attached to it. I can't really get very emotional about stuff that I know is fake.